The first one is that if I, the first one is that the screen is really dim. That's probably due to the projectors because it's really bright here. So sorry about that. But there's not going to be a lot of text there. So 3 excuses. The second one is if I'm going to faint, it's not because I'm bored or too drunk, or was too drunk yesterday. I'm kind of sick. I had a fever yesterday, so if I'm blanking or something, that's due to that. Third one is I think I was a little too rude yesterday at the migration talk, and I want to say sorry for that because we love every contribution, and I'd love to sit down and discuss ways to improve migration story with everyone. So sorry for that. That was a little uncalled for. Okay, without further ado, Plone 5 is out of the door. I wanted to give the same talk last year. It would have been a little premature, and I'm glad I didn't submit the talk. So now it's a much better time to give it, to upgrade your existing sites to Plone 5. So this is not about starting with a new project, Plone 5, but having an existing site and moving it to Plone 5. So I'll discuss migrations in general, and especially those to Plone 5. And I'm Philipp Bauer from Munich. Staatsl.de is my company. P. Bauer on GitHub and RSC. And, oh, cool. Keynote just crashed. Let's try that again. Okay, this is actually part 2 of a talk that I gave in Brazil at the Plone conference. I am actually wearing the same t-shirt, so if you watch the 2 videos one after each other, there's not going to be a style difference. And first of all, I'm going to repeat some of the main lessons from the first talk, and I'm going to do that as quotes. So every non-trivial upgrade should be approached as a relaunch. And here. So you should be careful with words because there's too many around. There's upgrade, update, migration, redesign, rewrite, relaunch, and I'm going very deeply into them in the first talk, so you might want to revisit that. But basically, a rule of thumb, you want almost everything that is non-trivial to be a relaunch. You want it to be approached as such, because only a relaunch is a project that has the full attention of you and your client, and you're looking at every part of the site. You're not looking at, okay, let's only bump the version number from 4 to 5, but you're looking at everything. You're looking at content, at site structure, at design, at the underlying packages that you're going to use. You're going to maybe even look at the different languages that you're using in the site, maybe reduce 5 to 4 because it's much easier to maintain and such. So that is wisdom number 1. Wisdom number 2 is the primary challenge is not the development, but the communication and the project management. So you have to figure out what the client actually wants. Because if he says, yeah, let's just upgrade from 4 to 5, that doesn't say anything, does not. There's all these elements that I just mentioned before that have to be discussed. So communicate about these and be clear that this is a real project, not a version bump of some add-on. Bring time and space, because you often forget that you have to do every migration and every step in the migration multiple times while developing. So you have to at least double, maybe triple or quadruple your estimates, depends on how bad your estimates are, because every estimate is bad. But your multiplier may vary depending on experience. Mine is about, I have to double. So getting a little better. And the space is about disk space. Get lots and lots of disk space, get a fast SSD, because your database will not only double during migrations, but you also need several copies of that database at various stages during the migration to not have to start over at point 1 again. Expect everything to break. I really mean everything. The design, the JavaScript, the content, the rendering of the content, every single add-on, everything. And don't experiment. I found myself experimenting a lot during migration. So, oh, this doesn't work and this doesn't work. Just fix. And when I fixed the second thing, I forgot how to fix the first thing because I have a terrible memory. So document instead of experimenting. Write every problem you have down and write every solution down. Don't say done after the problem because you have to do the migration again because this is just a test migration. You're not running the migration on a live site. But this is true for a migration from Plone 1 to 2 and 2 to 3 and 1 to 5 and 4 to 5. But also from Drupal to Plone and vice versa. So you always have to document every single step of the way you're doing. And this documentation will be your plan. Make a plan from that. You can start with a plan, but it will change as you go. And keep the plan for future reference, because when you do the next migration, you're going to have similar problems. Not the same, but similar ones. You can learn from that. And maybe put that these solutions also online for other people to use in the upgrade guide. Next wisdom, write your code as if your own kids will inherit your code one day. Because you don't want your future self, your future colleagues, or the successor of yourself to hate you because you wrote code without any doc strings, without any comments, without sane variables and such. Even the migration code, because you think you're going to run the code you're using for migration only once, so it can be one huge method and it does crazy stuff, and that's, yeah, migration is done, I'm never going to run that code again. The next website you're going to migrate, you want to copy and paste that code into your new project. This is like not super professional, but we all do copying and pasting every day. But you'll never understand what you did the year before. So please, help yourself. Write upgrade steps. I once wrote an upgrade step that migrated a Plone 4 to 5 site, and it ran for 14 straight hours. If that wouldn't have been an upgrade step, it would have been 30 single steps, and I would have had to click next step or run a browser view that does that step every 1.5 hours or so. After it was all combined, it was just one huge upgrade step that was very nicely compartmentalized, so that is good practice. It migrated to blobs, migrated comments, removed lots of old comments, so there's a lot of code that I'm not going to reuse in my next project, like remove all news items from folder X, Y if they serve these requirements. But the other things that are reusable are different methods. I can easily copy and paste them to my next project. So help yourself with that. You don't want to do that by hand. Divide and conquer, this is about very similar to what I said before. Write single upgrade steps with commits after each one. So if the first upgrade step or the first method in your upgrade step worked, then you can use a copy of that database to start working on the next project, and you have a copy of that database at that state in time, and after that works, you combine it to maybe one upgrade step or a second upgrade step, and then you have A, B, C, D, E, and that combines the whole thing. And that also makes sure that you only work at one problem at one time, and everything will be in code. Every problem will be solved in code. Don't try more than 2 new things at once. I'm talking about new technologies, because this is generally for all projects, not only migrations, but when you migrate a website or update a website, you usually add new stuff, like you add Dexterity, maybe add Mosaic, you add Diazo theme if you hadn't one before. But if you don't know all these technologies, only to use 2 of them, because otherwise you'll make your client pay for your inexperience, and that it's not his job to make you pay for learning, to pay for your learning experience. Use the help being Plone.api and for Teamworks or ftw.upgrade. Plone API, everybody should know it, and it's already in Plone 5. If you run upgrade steps in Plone 4 before doing the migration, also use Plone API. Makes your code much easier to read and to write, and also to be nicely able to reuse in future versions of Plone. For Teamworks Upgrade, it's an awesome package that has very nice helper methods for upgrades, and you can reuse them. You should read the documentation there. So now specifically about upgrades from Plone 4 to 5. So the main question you might ask yourself, why would you actually want to migrate to Plone 5? Because the first mistake, this is not about you, it is about your client. So also the client should ask himself, why would he or she want to upgrade to Plone 5? If it's your personal company website, you can ask yourself, that's okay. Maybe you want to play with these shiny new tools and bang your head against the resource registry and stuff like that. That's totally okay. But you should not try to motivate a client to upgrade to a Plone version just so that you can play with the nicest and newest tool. So if they have a really nice site running on Plone 4 and they don't have any demands, there is no reason to upgrade to Plone 5. Because the customers don't like paying for upgrades that give them no real benefit. So who profits from the upgrade is the main question. Because they want design, usability, and functionality, and they don't care if you're playing with the nicest tools. So is Plone 5 actually an easy sell for a customer with an existing site? And my theory is no, it's not. Because, so there's some key selling points for Plone 5. It has a great responsive design out of the box. Well, if I have a good Plone 4 site, it will probably have a great responsive design out of the box. Not out of the box, but I created one for them. So this is not a selling point in this case. They may want to use the new TinyMCE editor, number 4, instead of number 3. But let's face it, TinyMCE always sucks. It just sucks on different levels. So, yeah, some people might love it, but it's not the incentive to spend a lot of money on an upgrade. Security, you can't sell an upgrade on security, because then you're basically saying you really did a bad job before, and clients always take security for granted. So it should be secure out of the box. And the Plone 4 release, actually, the Plone 4 hotfix, fixed bugs in Zope that were still the case in Plone 3. So you can backport them. Also, no sale. Through the web features, also not really working, because they're really good for prototyping and for clients who want to do the stuff themselves. But actually most projects, at least ours, they are not very important when the site is actually running. So once it's really productional, they're not prototyping their content types with Dexterity through the web. So, but one thing remains: the user experience and usability, and that's where Plone 5 shines. So if your client or the person you're talking to is actually sometimes working with content, that might be the thing, because it increases productivity and happiness. Every time I demo Plone 5 to a customer, when I show the folder contents, it's a done deal, because they love it, they want it. I don't know, I can keep it a secret that wildcard folder contents works in Plone 4 too, but I usually don't. But they really love the tight integration of the new folder content. It's really, really nice. So this is, I think, the usability and the user experience of the new editing features is the main thing. So it's not always an easy sell, and this is mostly about marketing, so let's not go any further in there. You don't want to upgrade to Plone 5 when you don't have any budget, when there's many incompatible add-ons, when you have when a site has a very short lifespan, there's no developer resources, or when your client actually is really, really happy with the site and doesn't want to upgrade. Don't try to force him. I myself did not any single client project migration from Plone 4 to 5 yet, but I have some lining up. Okay, I'm going to do a live demo so that it actually. Okay, this is here. Okay, let's. Fire up an instance. Where's the browser? Plone 4.3. Some demo content in there. See all the stuff. So that, close the site. Extract the database. I created a tar-z from the database before. I'm going to start it in a Plone 5 instance. You will expect that to break. Yay. Sure, it does. So it says your website is outdated. Please update it. Update it. All your upgrades, they run, hopefully. Here, your Plone site is now up to date. Let's look at it. Plone 5, here we are. The event, everything is still there. And it is still working, although it is still archetypes. You see the event has a start and end date, but no recurrence and no full day thingy. So let's go one step further. There's a link here after you did the migration to Plone 5. It says upgrade your existing content to use Dexterity. Actually, Plone Up Dexterity is not installed on that site at all. Not automatically. There is a form that installs Dexterity. It installs the Dexterity types for these content types where you don't have any instances yet. So I didn't have any link content type, for example, I guess, and they were automatically installed. So, but here. This is still archetypes. Now this is the migration form. I need someone to do some set3c form magic so everything is checked here automatically. Volunteer for that, please. I'm going to migrate it. Only have 16 items, so it's not going to be that tough. Hey, here's my result. So it says I migrated all that. I actually have to confirm not the migration, but there is a CSRF warning for the result form. It tells me what was migrated. And now when I reload the event, now it's a Dexterity event. But you see, the comment was kept, the static portlet was kept, the review state was kept, everything was kept. The UIDs were kept, and so on and so on. So it is, or at least it looks pretty easy. Here's a news item. This image was the Archetypes news item. Now it's a lead image behavior image. And when I go to sharing, I see that my local roles are also migrated. So I don't lose any configuration or information except for one thing that's really important. you lose the content history. Not the workflow history, I'm talking about CMF editions, the versioning, because that is really hard to do. It's possible, but it's hard to do, and there was no need to do that yet. So that was the live demo. Okay, looks really easy. Is it really that easy? No, thank you. It's not. It can't be that easy. So there's another example. I'm going to show you that too. I'm not going to do the full migration for that example, but I'm going to show you at least the old site and the new site and some of the problems that occurred. So this was our old, company website. It's not very beautiful. This is Plone 4.3, and for this talk, I migrated it to Plone 5. So it's an old site. It had some content. Actually, had Lingua Plone installed. Had some configuration. Some add-ons. And it's called Startle.de. And this is the list of add-ons, and here is when it starts to get interesting. Because when you start a migration, you have to look at the various add-ons that are installed and do a guesstimate if they are easily migratable or not, and you're usually wrong. I thought, for example, that on top is the installed products because they're more important. I thought Plone True Gallery, probably not going to work. Plone FormGen, I knew it's going to work because I worked on that myself. Collective Discuss, I was pretty sure that's not going to work as well. So these are three that I thought are problematic somehow. So one of the things, some of the things I learned is that Lingua Plone is really hard to get rid of. Theming is really tricky, and some add-ons actually work nicely in in Plone 5. Not only does Plone True Gallery work really nicely, also Collective Discuss works. Products Plone FormGen works, and Collective JS jQuery UI also works. These are 4 of the add-ons in here. In some cases, I had to use checkouts of the newest versions or remove stuff. So the main issues I had were Lingua Plone, as you could expect, and that Plone Up theming was not installed by the migration. So after the migration, I got an error when I started rendering anything. And it was really hard to figure out what the problem was. I'm going to show you some of the tracebacks I got. And the conclusion is that it's actually not possible to do a Plone 4 to 5 migration for people without developer skills. Because who can guess what the issue behind this is? Hands up. Is that readable? No. So it's a key error. Plone app iterate, I iterate settings defines a field workflow, a checkout workflow policy for which there's no record. So the issue there was that I had an older version of Plone app iterate when I installed it, and I did not run the upgrade step in Plone 4 before I migrated to Plone 5. I ran the upgrade step or reinstalled the whole thing in Plone 5, and then it worked. But you'd have to know that Plone app iterate is what it actually is called in the quick installer. It's like hurdle number 1, but but then it worked. That was like the easy one. That was actually hard. Component lookup error, interface class, Plone resource interfaces, iResource directory, persistent. So when I read persistent, I usually go, oh, please. I call the cops. After a little debugging, and PDB debug mode totally helps, I went up in the traceback and saw what was the source of that, and the source of that in my old site, Plone Up theming was not installed, and that the migration didn't automatically install Plone up theming, although it expects to be installed because it tries to render the Barceloneta theme. So I had to install Plone up theming by hand, which is again not easy because in the quick installer, Plone up theming doesn't exist because it's a core dependency of Plone 5. So I had to look for it in Portal Setup. So looking for that profile in Portal Setup is also not really easy. I was looking for Plone up theming, Diazo, none. It's got Unterstützung für Theming. German, so it's under U for me. So that was also not easy, but cost me a couple of minutes in that case. Third one was when I tried to migrate from Archetypes to Dexterity, and I did that, the list of content items that were that I was able to migrate was actually empty, and I actually had to do a PDB to figure out what was going wrong there. I had to add a PDB to Plone up content types, and the issue was there is a check if multilingual, lingua Plone or Plone up multilingual is installed, and that was true because Plone up multilingual is a core dependency of Plone 5. It's always there. It's not enabled, but it's always there. So that was true. And if language is in the Portal catalog indexes, and I had lingua Plone in my old site, so it was the catalog was still there. So my list was empty then, because it assumed the code I wrote a long time ago assumed that I didn't do my job, and I actually didn't do my job. I had to remove the language index, and then it worked. And that is where I come to lingua Plone. So the migration from lingua Plone to Plone up multilingual is actually the hardest thing in the migration from 4 to 5, because you have to migrate to Plone up multilingual in Plone 4 and not in Plone 5. So you have to migrate to Plone up multilingual 2.x, not 1.x, because then you're ending up in hell. And it definitely needs some more work, and it needs some more documentation. And I beg you, please sprint on this. Please work on that. When you write during this sprint, when you work on migrating add-ons and try migrating your sites because it uses add-ons, document all the problems you have. Stefan is somewhere here, and Peter, he's also somewhere here, I guess. They both worked on that, and thank you very much for that. There is an issue in Plone up multilingual that holds like most of the documentation, but it needs to be worked on, finalized, and put in the upgrade guide, because nobody will figure it out how it works otherwise. So that's actually have a wish list that would include also a complete uninstall method for lingua Plone, because I had to use wildcard fix persistent utilities in my old Startle DE site to get rid of lingua Plone. I made the obviously easy choice to just remove the 2 English pages that we had on the site. I know it's really stupid to have a not German-only website for a company that does international Plone work. We're trying to get there, sorry. But I was, migrating. And also someone should adopt and shepherd the maintenance of Plone up multilingual, because there's not enough love there at the moment. We actually upgraded several sites in Plone 4 from lingua Plone to multilingual, and that was pretty successful, mainly because Stefan already knows what he has to do, but the documentation is the key thing here. Yeah, actually have items for that. Good. So the upgrade except for that, read the upgrade guide. That's the main thing I can tell you. And work on the upgrade guide during this sprint. We will write down everything you have, every problem you encounter during the sprint when upgrading add-ons. We'll move the upgrade guide, not move, we'll copy the whole upgrade guide to a Google Doc, because you can't co-edit the RST document at the same time. It doesn't really work because of the commits. So we'll copy the whole upgrade guide to a Google Docs, and everybody can work on the same document at the same time. And after the sprint, Paul or I will move the new upgrade, the amended upgrade guide to the RST document then, and everybody benefits, not only you if you write something down for you. So the design, that's a question. So it will break unless you use a full diazo theme. That's just a joke, because it will actually always break. The policy you should follow is disable your custom theme before migrating. Because with diazo, we have, if you use a diazo theme, that is already easy, because you're separating your code and your content from your theme. If you can disable the theme and try fixing it after you've successfully migrated to Plone 5. Don't bang your head against some theming issues, unless that was the one I had, that Plone Up theming was totally not installed. That's like one thing. But once you run your site in Barceloneta, and yeah, it might look like crap, but it works. That is the main point. And then you can work on fixing the theme. For our website, we decided the design sucked anyway, totally. And we want to create a new one, but we're going to keep the default until we find time to do that. So disable your custom theme before you migrate and work then. So you might ask yourself, why will it break even have a fully customized diagram theme? Because not only the main template changed, and that you're overriding your main template because you have your custom main template. Many of the small elements, portlets, viewlets, most notably the messages, portal, the info messages, they changed. They don't use DDs and DLs anymore. And if your rules, and I swear your rules will use DD and DL to theme these, and not only CSS classes as they are actually supposed to. So your themes will break. If you have one theme that doesn't break between 4 and 5, I'm gonna buy you a beer. No, I'm gonna buy you a cask of beer. The content. The content is actually not that much of a problem, because our default archetypes content, even custom ones, should work as before. The editing experience is not as nice, but the main thing is actually that you should migrate to Dexterity, and that is the next part of this talk. The settings is an important point. So in your code, you will use and set settings. So when you modified your settings via generic setup, either in portal properties or portal registry, it is very likely your customization will very likely break, because we moved everything to the portal registry just 2 weeks ago, and before the release, 3 weeks ago. And so all Plone settings are kept and migrated to the portal registry, and the portal properties will also still work for your stuff. But you should, for things like, I'm going to show my content type in the navigation, you should use the registry now. This is one example from the training documentation, where it says, also display the talk content type in the navigation, and it's also the sitemap. So most of that now lives in Plone Up registry or Plone registry. I'm not going to show you any code examples aside from that one, because it would be just too many. Before you work on your custom code, I'm going to give you some general advice. Figure out if it's actually needed anymore. There is a very high chance that it's not needed anymore. A lot of stuff you're doing in Plone is to work around the small quirks that annoyed you, or to customize your site. So really figure out what happened there. One example is for the Stotzel site, I wrote a custom code to replace, to set the language and forward to the site I wanted. That's replaced by the language switcher in Plone Up Multilingual. That actually also existed in Plone Up Lingua Plone already. It's just was tiny improvement there. So a lot of code already exists, and you can probably get rid of some of your code. Use Plone API for everything you write new or you change. You will thank yourself for that. And some of the imports change. For example, CMF default is totally gone, thanks to Tom Gross. Great job. Formlib is kind of gone. We can still add it, but we're not shipping with Formlib anymore. So if you have custom control panels and custom forms, they should be moved to Z3Z form. If you did that once, you will be grateful because it's really, really easy to write control panels in Z3Z form with an interface and some fields, and you have 2 lines of code, and bam, you have a control panel. It's really nice to migrate. There are some nice examples for that. If you're too lazy to do that, it will still work. I'm running out of time. Okay. Portlets also move to Z3Z form, and all your overrides and patches will likely break. So you'll have to check again, if you did not do an initial commit before you overrode your, when you added your override, JBot, for example, collective JBot, Plone, Z3Z JBot, you'll hate yourself, but you can do a diff. Usually they will break because a lot of stuff changed. Just very quickly, the Archetypes to Dexterity story, because that I showed it already. There's the Plone app content types installer view that installs those types that don't have any instances. There's the ATCT migrator view, which is actually the migration form. And there is migrate from ATCT, which is actually doing the migration sub-browser view. And you can use the last one in your custom code. So you can get that with API get view migrate from ATCT, comma portal, so have a context. And you can call that and pass it a list of content types. So you can do custom migrations, partial migrations with that. You saw that in the form, but you can also do that in code. And it only works with default types, which is a pity, but that's the way it works. It could be extended to be better reusable for your custom migrations. And it has really nice patches to make migrations work nice. For example, it disables link integrity, notify, modify the IUUID index and stuff like that. UUID index. That could be a little refactored, so it's easier to be reusable for your custom migrations. As I said, you can do partial migrations, so you have your document content type still archetypes, and the rest is dexterity, and there is a reason for that, because maybe you have lots and lots of schema extended stuff in your view, in your document, and have a very elaborate view, and you don't have any budget to migrate that. Then you might decide to keep that in archetypes, and it will still work. It's totally not recommended to do that, but if your purse is empty, there's, yeah, what else? But okay, there's also custom migration. You can migrate any custom type to any type, and you're mapping fields to each other. So you can migrate a document also to a news item, and it shows all schema extended fields. And this is really awesome. A lot of people worked on that, and I loved it. But maybe it has bugs, so please test it and write issues. Use the field migrators for your custom migrations. Yes, and 2 partial commits. Upgrading add-ons is your job. Thank you.